Every dream starts somewhere. It's the end of summer and we still don't have anything to show but a huge trench. Digging hard clay seemed to take all summer, although we had taken a lot out of the ground. Now it is time to put something in. I've had to put a few dreams to rest in recent years, and I've heard it said that death tends to make way for something new. We are putting something in the ground, but this time we are not saying goodbye to loved ones. As I laid out the newly bent reinforcing steel, I'm reminded that my dream of building a home studio is no longer something stuck in my head. With all the steel loaded back on the truck ready for delivery, we set up the steel ready for wire tying and placing in our trench ready for the next inspection. If we pass, we are ready to pour our concrete footings. Tying the steel looked easy enough, having watched some pro on YouTube tying fast and making it all look like a piece of cake. I gave it a shot, but it was Catherine who persevered to the end. When the day came for inspection, we discovered a moisture problem. Our carefully tied steel was sitting in a moat of rainwater. Parts of our once hard clay were now crumbling into the trench, so with limited time, all the kids got to work soaking up the water bucket by bucket. The inspector came and checked the placement of the trench and checked our string lines from the boundary. We passed, so the next day we got to work hand mixing 6 cubic metres of concrete for our footings. Catherine and the kids filled old buckets with builder's mix and cement to keep the ratios consistent, while Murray kept the mixer turning load after load ready for the wheelbarrow. Meanwhile, I had a good lesson on how to use a trowel. It was a full-on day, and as we watched the concrete gradually set, I noticed all the yellow safety caps sitting in a line around the perimeter steel, like freshly bloomed tulips. I was reminded that a tulip doesn't flower straight away. They lie in the ground waiting for the right time to burst out of the ground. Sometimes that's a long time, and so it was for us. We'd dug, we'd buried, and now we have a glimpse of something new. Catherine had poured the last barrow load, and it was time to clean up. Then we were done. Watching the weight of bricks weighing down the truck helped me comprehend the full scale of what it takes to build a strong foundation. But carrying all 185 blocks at 17 kgs each, not to mention the almost half-ton weight of mortar, really highlights the need for having a relentless determination and a few helpers who share the same dream. My hope was to be involved with every step of the building process and do as much as I could manually, and that meant moving every shovel load, every block, and every length of timber by hand. Sure, I would have loads of help from family and a few friends, but I wanted to see if I could actually achieve something bigger than myself, something that seemed impossible, and share my journey as I reached each milestone. Day after day, I slowly laid each block, making sure each one was plumb and level, while failing miserably at placing the mortar in a fast and efficient way. By now, the burn of summer was turning into wet weather, so the slow race was on, and the weight of each block was getting heavier one by one. I wanted to do a good job, and so I took my time, and that meant I had to race the weather with a few showers and a quick ramble for some plastic protection for the newly placed blocks. I discovered what a wonderful thing a string line is in keeping your work straight. It is very easy to leave a block just touching the string, which can inevitably put the whole line out. But keeping slightly off the line means all blocks can be laid straight, and that makes for a square foundation. Every block is placed, checked and rechecked multiple times to keep precise heights and maintain a level floor. A painstaking job and a good reminder that a big dream takes a lot of patience and perseverance. And with the last block placed and all the kids having had their last shot at laying a bit of mortar, we were back on concrete duty, filling all the blocks, ready for sand, compacting, and eventually a concrete floor. And then came the sand, and it just kept on coming. We had to hire a 1.6 ton roller compactor to ensure every inch of sand was compacted and filled to a specific height. We had to make a ramp of compacted sand to get the roller over our blockwork and into the sand pit. And at first I was worried that 1.6 tons would be too much weight on my first attempt at block laying. But then I did the maths. There was at least 31 tonne of concrete already in the ground, plus 3.5 tonne of blocks and mortar, and the slab alone was going to add a further 19.2 tonne. Then there is the weight of 32 cubic metres of compacted sand. That's 54 tonne, which is about the same weight as everything else already in the ground. And we still haven't added the weight of the reinforcing steel or timber. The engineer gave us the pass, so we started digging ditches for the plumber to lay pipes for a toilet and drain. It turns out we got too much sand, so we needed to move some of the excess, and this time we got help from some of the kids around the neighbourhood. Soon after the plumber was done, my brother came and stayed for a few days, and we raked and dug out more sand to ensure the compacted sand was at the accurate height of 100 millimetres. We used a laser level to ensure we were sitting at the right height. Then we shaped the sand to allow for the 50mm thick sheets of polystyrene to be placed around the perimeter of the studio. Finally, we brought out the polythene to fit snugly around the sand bed. The next task was to bend the starter rods that were still sticking up in their lines like fresh tulips. The mesh was laid with specific overlap and tied together with the starter rods and the final line of reinforcing steel around the top of the blockwork. Unfortunately, we failed our pre-floor inspection. In spite of our great care in checking the height of the sand with a laser level, somewhere along the way we still failed to remove enough sand, and in one place the polystyrene was sitting 20mm over. This was hard and frustrating news, as I would have to reschedule our concrete placer and add 20mm of boxing around the entire perimeter of the blockwork. For me, this meant a week of delay, and there was a lot of rainfall due over the coming week. Do it once and do it right, I was told during my apprenticeship days. Turns out that doing it the second time is much more tricky, but I got there in the end and I was happy, and so was the inspector. 3 days later, we were all out of bed by 5 AM, ready for the concrete placer and his son. The concrete pump arrived first and raised its boom right over our house to the building site. For the first time, I got to sit back and watch somebody else work on my project. These guys knew their trade, and I'm so glad we all got to see another dad working together with his son. There were 3 concrete mixers that came, and it turns out 20 extra millimeters of concrete really does make judging quantities more challenging. By my calculations, the weight of my dream so far clocks in at around 110 tonne, and that is just the foundation. It's taken 4 months to get to this stage, but when you have waited a long time already, you've already developed a healthy level of patience. Hope in dark times is like a light that leads beyond today's horizon. Hope enables us to remember the heat of the morning sun while shivering in the cool of the earliest hour. It convicts us of the day approaching and brings peace in the longing and waiting. And in all our waiting, it feels like we have just begun.